Hello, I'm host Eric. I'm host of Talking with Famous People. We're going to explain and demonstrate TE by executing a clear explanation of TE and a video that is roadmapped in order to do that, and it follows that roadmap, and we're going to do it in the following way. I'm going to give my general description of it. I'm going to explain how it works as a conscious function, how it works as an unconscious function. Then I'm going to pass it over to host Ken. He's going to tell me how he finds it appalling or whatever he wants to say about it. Then he's going to pass it to host Taylor. He's going to say what he thinks about CE, how he manifests it in his life or whatever. And then we'll conclude with a nice tight wrap up that says, and now you've learned something. So I'll begin with explaining TE. Extroverted thinking. In the conscious function stack, it means that you prioritize other people's understandings over it being consistent with your own understanding. So in other words, if an idea is good, it's only meaningful to the extent that you are making it understood to others. That's what TE is all about. When you explain something well and follow a roadmap and are very orderly in the presentation of information, you're engaging in good TE. I used to mistakenly believe this was TI that I was engaging in when I did that because I saw myself as a TI user and assumed that, well, it's smart sounding or whatever, so it must be introverted thinking. In fact, to successfully convert introverted thinking into words that can be consumed by others and understood and convey the meaning intended is to engage in strong extroverted thinking. Now, for me, it's unconscious, which means I don't consciously prioritize the value of other people understanding things or my explanation being sound over what I know inside my own head. Well, look, it's complicated, I might say, in certain circumstances. I don't want to have to explain it all, but trust me, the logic is sound. I might say in other circumstances. To an extroverted thinker who has extroverted thinking in the conscious function stack, they wouldn't like that notion at all because then it's not useful and it's not real in some sense because you haven't explained it to anybody. So I have a mixed relationship with extroverted thinking. I see it on the one hand as being kind of bossy and controlling, trying to restrict me, not necessarily being always compatible with my extroverted intuition drive to do new things and go new directions. On the other hand, I know I utilize it a lot in my work, and I've accomplished professional and personal success more when I use TE effectively than when I don't use TE effectively. So it's something I would like to see myself be more successful at, and this video is an attempt to do so. Let's pass it over to host Ken now and see what he has to say about extroverted thinking. Remembering, of course, that host Ken's relationship to extroverted thinking is that he has it in the 7th slot or the PoLR slot.
Extroverted thinking is pain and suffering. It's unfortunate for me to use sometimes. No, it's really not. It's not terrible. But darn if it doesn't seem terrible to me sometimes. It's weird. I don't know if I'm viewing it correctly. Probably not. But to my mind, TE's kind of like coming up with a plan of action, except you're not really planning because I already had a plan, and we're not really acting or, committing to an action because if we were doing that, then we'd be doing something. So it's like a special kind of stagnating hell where you're observing the fact that, yeah, you're in hell. That's basically TE.
It's making your plan into an actual plan instead of just an idea. That's the difference. Right?
But TE is not the execution.
Well,
right?
I didn't say that.
I know. I'm not saying that you did say that. I'm saying TE is not the execution in my mind anyway.
That's true.
I don't see it
It's
as the
not.
execution.
That's true. Okay. Host Taylor, thoughts on TE?
Less dramatic than host Ken's, less developed than host Eric's. It's a to-do list. It makes to-do lists. That's how I try to use my TE, is to make to-do lists, and then not really do them all.
I see to-do list as more SI. I see TE as more making stuff understandable to others, as defaulting to saying that a given
if someone doesn't understand something that I think that they should understand autonomously, they're not worth dragging along.
Right. That's unconscious TE. We
And a
value
bit,
you and I both value TI over TE in that regard inherently. Host Ken?
to make my comment a little bit less dramatic, uh, it's like TE is. It's like for me, it really depends on the way it gets used. Um,
Is there a pleasant way to use it?
yeah, I think explaining how to go about something logically or reasonably would be a way to do it. But I think when it gets coupled with someone's own ideas of what they think should get done, and they start it's kind of like, it's not really micromanaging like in an SI sort of way. It's more just managing. Okay, now we do this. Okay, now we do that. Like, there's a difference between explaining something and then explaining it, and then trying to control the outcome of it.
So you'd like to see NETE injected with 600 milliliters of FE to make it a little bit more palatable. Like,
Not even necessarily FE. No, it's like a lack of. And
It's a lack of being the boss from the inside without having to explain it to anybody.
I like being a boss from the inside.
yeah,
Huh?
I respect that. I totally respect that. Right, I understand it completely. I don't like being bossed around either.
No,
I'm not a
we
good
don't-
recipient of TE. I'm a much better practitioner of TE than I am a recipient of TE.
Yeah, I'm fine with, like, I'm perfectly fine with other people using TE, but when TE is run its course, please stop so that I can continue doing what I'm doing. You know?
And next,
That's how I
Toaskin,
feel
you
about
will
it.
do this other thing you don't want to do.
If there was any type that was most inclined to be a dictator, what do you think it would be?
INFJ.
ENTJ, INFJ power couple.
Yeah.
Power couple.
I think it's INFJ because INFJs are the ones that have the most distant relationship to external stimuli as a changer of opinions of them in themselves. They start with introverted thinking, then their judging function is about other people's feelings, but not about truth or their ideas or anything like that. Their truth or ideas function is internal, and then that means that it's all the way down really until SE when they're doing shit with other people out in the world that they're causing. They're actually engaging with their non-social idea impacts, and so, and then by the time they get all the way down to TE, making their ideas realizable for other people, it's quite some distance away from their natural instinct to just go with what they know to be true. And a dictator's got to have the capacity to do that. The capacity to, on some level, ignore in the ignoring function the possibilities that they're wrong and um, that they are doing something crazy, and then additionally, um, just sort of. I think the TE aspect is one of those things where that rules will bind you. You know, even if you're consistent in the rules, even you'll be bound. That's why you have to be that far away from stuff to be a dictator. Maybe ISTP could be a dictator too. I don't know.
Maybe we should talk about your mom.
Oh,
I know.
And she's gone.
Um, it's funny. I read a comment today.
It is interesting.
I've heard a lot of people express hostility about ESTJs. I've not had that experience with ESTJs at all, that they're particularly bossy or anything, except maybe in a work capacity, not as people in your life. I don't find it to be that way.
I think I've known one individual who, if I had to guess his type, it would probably be ESTJ, and he was actually pretty personable. pretty easy to get along with, but we very clearly had different ways of going about things.
No shit.
And the other TE Dom is ENTJ. So, both those types are the most productive types, probably, because, of course, they're all about making their internal ideas realizable and realized for other people. The reason that TI people tend to distrust TE is TE results in rules that are pointless that you have to follow or get in trouble for anyway. Like when you've got a stoplight that's red in the middle of the night, but there's a red light camera on it. Well, you need to be able to run that light, right? There's no reason for me to have to wait there. I can see there's no cars coming. I should just be able to go. That infuriates me. It appalls me, and it makes me want to fucking throw a fit. I don't know what to say about it. It's so wrong. That is TE gone bad, right? TE gone bad. You got to sit at a fucking stoplight in the middle of the light because the light is red, and that's the rule, and there's a fucking camera there to enforce it.
It's awful.
That's terrible.
Every time I try to leave
I
McDonald's,
guess
Go ahead, Taylor.
that stoplight by McDonald's. Every time I try to leave McDonald's late at night, which is most of the time I eat at McDonald's, I can't take a left-hand turn, and there's no one there.
Is it
It's
because
a
of
real problem. It results in a lot of wasted time.
right?
Cumulatively, the wasted time is probably quite a bit.
Taylor doesn't want to go out the other way, Katie. If he
Yeah.
wanted to go out the other way, he'd go out the other way. He wants to go out this way and make a left.
Yeah, but you're just like.
Is that what he says? Do you say that, Taylor? When people say, why don't you go the other way? Is that your response to it? I don't want to go out the other way. I shouldn't have to go out the other way. I want to go out this way and make a left.
That's pretty much verbatim it.
Yeah, right.
so. I think
I know that response. I love that
tying
response.
it- I think.
That's a big one.
Go ahead, Ken.
I think tying it into TE. I think
Because of these-
there's a way I could. Like, I think it's tied into TE, but there's like this sort of issue that I have with following the rules that you're talking about, like with the stoplights. I sort of expand this further, and I think about, like when it comes to like following the rules or whatever, you know, more than just following the rules, like following set paths, like ideas of like, okay, you go to school and then you get this job or something like that, or you gotta save up for your 401k naturally. You know, you gotta do something like this clear order to things. And the thing I get frustrated with is I try to ask people the grand, you know, why question, which is like, why are we here? You know, different things like that. And I feel like the thing I'm most frustrated with is when people give me a very TE sort of, well, now we're gonna do this and this and this. I'm like, no, why? Can you explain to me why? And it's like,
Right.
this correlation between
But
people
you don't
who
really
love.
know why. You want them to not be able to explain it. You've already determined that it is not valid. You won't be persuaded.
I'll tell you the
Touche.
why. The why is basically this, because their approach to life is to find a system that works and execute that system. That's the TE way. And it's to create systems that work and execute them, and it's to follow systems that work and execute them. And you know, ESTJ has got SI in the second slot. So what they do is they look for tried and true proven systems. My dad has been that guy my entire life. But Eric, you have to do the next step in the thing is you got to go and do this. And I'd be like, fine, you know, okay, fine, I'll go do that. I usually just give in and just go do it, whatever it was. If it was, you know, my dad early on learned to work around me, and so if he could do it for me without involving me, he'd do it for me without involving me. And so that made my life go pretty smooth and easy, you know. And if he couldn't, and then once I got done with college, he put me in the job that he wanted me in too. It's like, well, now you should go be a substitute teacher for the county because they've got good retirement. They talk about all the benefits and all the other shit, and in fact, I did build up quite a good retirement fund there, so that was nice. But the thing is, eventually I said, after my first divorce, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done with all this shit. And it was a stark break because I realized that I wasn't down for that. Of course, just sort of blah, just steady as it goes kind of shit, you know? Just wasn't for me. But he was always nice. He's as nice as he could be about it. He's always been a great dad, you know? He's fussy like that. He's got the fussiness of an ISFJ because he's got SI in the second slot, and he's got the but this is how it goes thing of an ESTJ. And you just kind of be like, oh, Dad. And the ENTP, I have a certain feel of like he's got a certain helplessness to him too in this area. Like he can't really see all the infinite possibilities of life. Like you could do anything. Why would you go do this blah thing forever and just blah blah blah? Like, of course, the reason is because you have to make money, Eric. And you know, I've been pretty lucky in that regard as well in life in general. So, I mean, you know, I've had plenty of poor times, but I've always been able to keep a roof over my own head and stuff like that. You know, good enough. I don't need to be.
We're supposedly good at making money and not good at keeping it.
Right. Boom bust cycle. It's been accurate for me.
Have I showed you my commission paintings?
Yes, you have. You have. Well, you're good at making money and you're good at buying commission paintings. That's
Yeah.
that's two things you're good at. Okay, so this topic of TE, we did get perhaps slightly meandering towards the end, but it was still on topic. I feel pleased with this 18-minute long approximately video that we did a better job staying on topic, and we did a decent job of demonstrating TE. I certainly hope all viewers understand it better now than they did before starting the video, if they had any deficit of understanding going into watching the video. If their understanding of TE was complete prior to watching the video, then of course the said wished upon outcome is logically impossible. So, with those words of salutation and adieu, I will bid you goodbye and say, hope you remember to eat plenty of cheese.